It took me over 2 years to make this video, but I'm finally going to show you how I remodeled the entire living room of my house. The largest and most complex environment where practically everything is involved: floors, walls, windows, demolitions, mezzanines. But I'm also going to show you all about the chosen decoration, how many of the things were made, and all the technology and smart devices we put in so that even the plants don't have to be watered. If you are old users of the channel, you will know that about 2 years ago I moved to the house where I live now. I have already shown you several remodels such as the garden, the office, the workshop, the gamer room, the main room and the closet. My house is a very old house, and when I bought it, I did it for the potential it had. It already had very old things and things that are no longer made. Like for example, 5-meter high ceilings, Pinotea floors, a tree that can no longer be cut down for this, doors and openings of trees that are also now protected, and a lot of other things. Initially, the house was composed of 2 lines separated by a wall. I knew I was going to unite them, so we ordered that wall to be demolished. A giant wall 30 centimeters thick, 5 meters high and 4 meters long. Once demolished, we made a mezzanine of coated iron, where I still have my office to this day, where I edit all my videos and do my work. I'm not going to go into much detail as I explain this better in the mezzanine video and the office video respectively. Now that we had half of the living room sorted out, we faced the main problem of this house: the light. The living room was very dark. If you didn't turn on the lights during the day, you practically couldn't see anything, and being so large, you had to have at least about 10 lamps on at the same time. To combat this problem, we designed new openings, which when we first thought of them would only be one, and it would be located on the wall that faces the lower terrace of my house on the garden side. There really was no place to make windows. We wanted to make the window as large as possible, however we ended up making 2 smaller ones with a column in the middle for structural reasons, even though there was no construction above. For that we opened the 2 holes and we plastered them with a common cement mixed with water repellent so that the water does not deteriorate it or seep through. We chose the windows to be full paneled. A window that opens or closes was very expensive due to the aluminum structures and ventilation. Having decided this, what I did was screw an L profile on the inner side of the window using common plugs and silicone for the contact between the aluminum and the wall as such. Then I put a normal 6mm glass and screwed another L profile of aluminum like the other, but this way on the inside so that it is like a sandwich and very firm. Make sure to put silicone everywhere so as not to allow water to seep in. The second window was the most important of all, since it was going to go on the roof. Originally we wanted to put this type of skylights, but they are crap. We were going to have to put at least 6, filling the roof with holes and leaving it like some kind of abused cheese. Our second idea was to make a fairly large window. Our roof is not a common slab roof as such, but it is a roof of what is called a bovadilla here, also typical of an old house, and consists of several double irons that go from one side to the other of the walls, and in the middle they are filled with common bricks. So if we remove these intermediate bricks without altering the iron, we would not have any problem. Taking advantage of this, I used the Bremen laser level and laser meter, 2 tools that always made this type of work much easier for me, and right in the center of the future window, I made a hole from the inside of the house to the terrace. Now with this hole, I can go up to the terrace and start. I marked the future window with a marker and cut the roof using a large grinder with a diamond disc. At least what I could, the rest I chipped with a mallet and a chisel. To prevent debris from falling from the roof and breaking everything, I rented and assembled a scaffold inside. This way I'm also much safer and I can even stand there to work. And I already know him, so before you tear me apart in the comments, let me tell you that I didn't pull all this out of a hat, but I had an architect draw up the plans for all the openings, discussing the models and settling on this final design. All I did was take care of executing the work. Once I had the hole made, I made a cord of common brick, sticking it with waterproof cement. This cord is to give it a little height so that the water does not fall inside the house. To place the glass, I put an L profile all around using a polyurethane adhesive. This profile was recommended to me by the architect. I would have done it differently, but oh well. The glass I use for the window is a 4+4 laminated glass. It means that there are 2 4mm glasses each that have in the center a transparent plastic which gives it stability and some flexibility. These glasses are quite expensive, but I got them for about $17 each, as they were from a glassware store in a commercial place that closed and they were selling off the stock. The glasses need to be glued with silicone. And once glued, apply more silicone on top, making a bead with a wet finger. The first rain caught us and a lot of water got in. For this, I prepared a plaster also with water repellent and plastered all the bricks that had been left, and no more water was coming in from anywhere. So the next thing is to put an asphalt membrane on top of the bricks. And on the inside, I plastered everything to make it neat, and we painted everything white. We want to see how it goes with the light issue, to see if we later put a little curtain here or leave it as it is. At least now there was lighting and we could move on to the second problem of the house. Do you remember the old Pinotea floor I told you about? I don't know how many years it has, but it's definitely over 50, and if they're not well preserved, this happens. These floors are not resting on the floor but are floating, supported by beams and pillars at certain intervals. If they get damp, these beams rot and the floor sinks, and that's what happened to a part of the floor here. The floors of the two living rooms did not match. One was clearly lower than the other, I would say more than 5 centimeters. For that, I chipped away the junction between the floors until I could see the columns. And yes, the beam was broken and the floor had fallen. I used a 2-ton car jack and put it where the beam was still healthy to gradually lift the floor, until I confirmed with the laser level that the floor was level. Once leveled, I used bricks and cement to create 2 new columns. It's important that the beam doesn't rest directly on the brick, but that you put a little piece of wood at the end, so it doesn't absorb the moisture from the foundation. I repeated this same process for all the fallen areas, and as if that wasn't enough work, I found a little surprise. Underneath the floor was full of ants and an ant hill, almost 2 by 2 meters, that had probably been there for many years. This ant hill was the cause of all the moisture in the walls, because the ants kept accumulating all that stuff they brought in. And of course, all that brings moisture since it has a fungus inside. I couldn't ignore the mess, so I tried vacuuming with my industrial vacuum cleaner, but it broke. I had to buy another used industrial vacuum cleaner. Feeling mediocre, I started vacuuming everything within reach. It was like 2 days of vacuuming and getting around 100 kilos of ant hills. I was really fed up, to be honest. But since ants are not that easy to get rid of, we called a pest exterminator who threw poison and then sprayed aerosol under the floor. What this aerosol did was create a kind of fog and reach all the nooks and crannies to kill the ants. And now, without ants unleveled, we can close the hole. First of all, I used the same bricks that I took out, and I was sticking them with concrete made by 1 part of cement, 3 of sand and gravel or stones. To finish, I leveled it well with a little piece of wood so that it would be flush and neat. One thing I did was to leave a little window without cement, let's say a kind of hole where I placed a piece of wood. This is so that every few months I can remove it like a skylight and be able to fumigate again, since if we close everything, the ants could come and we would not have a way to get back in there. When it dried, I used white micro cement to level the surface and give it a better finish, which I then painted with white floor paint, since the micro cement does not come in white as such, but is more like a bone or beige color, and there is no such thing as white paint tint, so I couldn't tint the micro cement. And I think it turned out spectacular. If you look at it, it merges with the columns and the beam, and it ends up like a white frame in the middle of the living room. The floor was quite worn out, not only due to time but also because of the work that was done, and on top of that, a new treatment had to be applied. That being said, I didn't do it myself because I didn't have the tools, but basically a huge machine is used that sands it down and removes approximately 1 millimeter from the wood of the floor, and then a plastic coating is applied so that it can be walked on, is waterproof, and also lasts for many years. I didn't film much when they were doing this work, as it makes me feel a bit bad filming people working and then using it for my personal gain. But I loved how it turned out. Diego's work was totally worth it. He was here working for 2 whole days. Underneath the mezzanine, we had put plasterboard to give it a good finish and some recessed lamps to have more light. What we did was finish sanding all the joints and then paint everything white. The window was always closed, the street was already there, and I don't like it to be seen inside. What we did was remove the wooden blinds and put a frosting that sticks like a sticker so that now the light passes, but from the outside it can't be seen inside. On the wall next to the column, we invented some moldings using wooden sticks. We cut them and glued them to the wall using a Universal glue and some nails, we made it look like two rectangles, one larger than the other, and this is to put a picture inside. We still don't know which one, but we are between these two. Well, that's not true. My girlfriend and I usually watch remodeling shows for design inspiration. And we see that what everyone does is the same. Basically paint everything white and then put little brown things, kind of Nordic style, something similar to what I did when I remodeled the room. But to transfer it to the whole house seems to me like they run out of ideas, then all the houses look the same. Anyway, we wanted to add a bit of color and have an authentic house, a place that doesn't look like it's taken from a magazine, but is made up of objects that have a history. One piece of advice I give to my girlfriend is not to rush to buy everything at once and fill the house with things. Buy the essentials and gradually acquire little things that you like. We started by fixing all the walls, covering holes and cracks and removing all the parts that had moisture with a spatula. Then we used a product that is applied like a filler but is much stronger. Anti-moisture so it doesn't seep back in again. Next to the door, a piece of plaster had fallen off, so I replastered it using a fine plaster and smoothing it out very well. I covered all the wall cracks with a special product that is for wall cracks. It's a bit elastic, can be painted, and is designed for this. On this wall, we used leftover wooden slats and stuck them to the wall, making rectangles, also gluing them with a molding adhesive, nails, and then covering the joints with the same wall crack sealant. Taking advantage of having a black paint that could withstand high temperatures, we painted the stove black, which I think looks much nicer than before. And while we were at it, we also painted the main lamp with the same paint. We painted that wall aloe green or vintage green, a color that we liked quite a bit and that we feel goes well with the other colors in the living room. We knew painting everything white would make the space look larger and brighter, but we wanted a warmer feel. With the space already being quite large at around 34 square meters, we decided to take this approach. We painted the rest of the living room white. It should be noted that the living room measures 9 meters by 4 and 5 high. Imagine painting that. Luckily we were 3, as my girlfriend and my mother-in-law were there, and they basically took care of painting everything. I only painted the ceiling because I was the only one who dared to stand on the top step of the ladder. We painted it in a record time of just 1 day. Now that we have light, I can finally have indoor plants, which I really like but could never have before. In fact, I now have many, including rare or collectible ones, although they are practically taking care of themselves with these 2 things I've put in place. The first is a watering and humidity alarm sensor, a little battery-operated device that you bury in the ground. This little device measures the humidity, and when it detects that the plant needs water, it starts sounding an alarm so you can water it. Super useful, since one of my plants, for example, I hung from the ceiling in a huge pot and I can't be watching it all the time since I would have to bring the ladder. I mean, it would be a hassle. And an extra little finger, it only sounds if it's daytime. In addition, I also put a few drops of automatic irrigation on the plants, and I put some modular moss tutors on several of them that later stack on top of each other, which I bought all on Mercado Libre. Browsing through Facebook, I found this tremendous jar of about 30 liters, and I said, I cut off the peak and I have a high transparent glass pot. And I'm going to tell you how I did it. First, using a glass cutter, I grabbed it with the vise kind of diagonally. Then I turned the jar upside down and kept rotating it while the glass cutter was scratching. Honestly, I had no idea what I was doing and I didn't have faith that it would work, but oh well. Now to cut it, I started pouring hot water on it. Then I submerged it in cold water, but nothing happened. I replaced the hot water with a heat gun, repeated it about 3 times, and to everyone's surprise, the jar, instead of breaking, cut right at the part I had scratched. It was unbelievable yet undeniable. I ran a sandpaper over the edges so they wouldn't cut anymore, and then I put 2 colocaceas inside, which are pond plants. The perfect jar, since I can flood it and it looks spectacular. You can also make it into an aquarium or whatever you want. And no, this water is not going to rot, nor the plant is going to die. In fact, it's even giving me new leaves, and it's not a mosquito nest since I put aquatic plants to break the water surface tension, plus it has very little water on top. The rest was just putting furniture that we liked. By chance, we found a combo of armchair and sideboard that we loved, and here we did make a very large investment, but I still think it was an excellent price. These are restored furniture and even have a creation pattern. They are modular and you can arrange them as you wish. We hung this picture from Zen Pencil, an illustrator that I really like and that my girlfriend gave me when I just moved into this house. Underneath is the first bar cart we bought, also used. We decorated it with cocktail and drink books, some nice liquor bottles and a few plants, and that's it. Right next to it we put a basket to have a blanket handy, and this little heart stool we bought at the flea market here in Buenos Aires, and we thought it went very well to support this plant. Below we put this rug that was one of the ones in the room, but the dog tore it up, so we cut it and put it there. On top of the sideboard we arranged objects with colors that were in the range, like these painted eucalyptus branches that we found walking once by 11. We put them in a vase that also had like 5 years ago, and we also put travel decorations, cooking books that we like, and we use old photos, some succulents, and some books of Argentine art and landscapes. Then we put a light-emitting diode strip behind the sideboard to give it more presence. I used the Xiaomi light-emitting diode strip that allows you to change the color at will, and I modified some things on the TV so that when it goes into standby mode, images of paintings that we like come out. We still have to hang some paintings that my girlfriend brought from Colombia, but I'm sure when we do, I'll be posting it on Instagram, so don't forget to follow me. For the lamp, we painted the one that was already there and added these smoked light-emitting diode bulbs that go very well with the black color. We also didn't want to fill the house with Nordic plant bases, so we bought this mini column at a workshop of a well-known painter here in Argentina, the Giannini workshop, a total boss. We also took advantage of an old quilt that we were going to throw away to make my bed for the dog we bought in once a fabric that resembles leather, but is not faux leather, and besides, it looks of better quality. And since the oven is not for buns, we taped it with duct tape underneath as a temporary solution. But it turned out so well that, I don't know, it's one of those things that stayed that way forever. For the reading section, we put this one-seater Chesterfield sofa, also used from Mercado Libre, and next to it, this triangular table that we got through Facebook. Then, under the mezzanine, the dining room, and we decorated it with some handmade placemats that my girlfriend bought in Cartagena, and colorful plates that created a good contrast. Maybe later we'll change the chairs, but for now they're fine. Under the stairs, we put the barrel that I modified, and that is also an arcade. But we thought that later it was a good idea to make a wine cellar. From inside, we hung some pictures. This is a drawing made with pencil strokes, and this other one is abstract art. And above, we hung this bed with a climb that cost us quite a bit. But we did it. It goes really well, because it's very big. And besides, it doesn't bother there. To avoid the hassle of using a ladder every time I wanted to water the plant, I invented this solution. Basically, a gasoline pump for cars, a little hose, and on the edge it has a kind of curve that I printed using flat black Krylon. 3 Plastic, which you already know, is the brand I use that always for printing everything because of the quality it has. In what it does is that I activate the pump in the watering can, the water goes up and falls directly on the plants that are above, so I don't have to be going up all the time. In short, the design we tried to give the living room was a mid-century modern style, something more related to old or vintage things, but combined with technology, new things, and plenty of plants. I loved how it turned out, and I think it feels like a home, something more authentic, where one feels comfortable and managed to get out of what one sees everywhere and what is now considered luxury with so much white ceramic or marble floor, things like that, which I really don't like much. In a place where our friends and family feel comfortable and not afraid to touch something and break it. But besides that, I'm thrilled to finally finish this phase and stop living with the constant construction dust. Thanks for watching. I'll upload anything missing to my Instagram. Follow me and see you in the next video.